It is Wednesday, May 29th, 2019. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a very, very fun get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Wednesday, a little bit victorious, although it was just basic rolling, so of course nothing too big to crow about. But I did get like the sickest choke like ever. This guy that I was rolling with, somehow or another I managed to pin his left arm underneath my chest. And so I had his neck up against his shoulder on one side, my arm on the other side, and I just squoze, and I got it into like the rear naked choke, arm grab there, and just squeeze, and that was it. He tapped. I mean, I thought I had gotten him tight enough before, but I had to tighten it up just a teeny tiny more for him to finally concede that no, we're not getting out of this. It's time to tap. Anyway, I almost got him in it a second time too, but I refrained. If I'd have come in a little bit tighter under his head, that would have been pretty much it. I'd have sunk it in and said, "What? Didn't you learn anything the first time?" Anyway, so yeah, as far as what techniques we went through today, I honestly can't remember. We did so much regular rolling that it's like it's not immediately right there, and I know what it was. It was a half guard escape, and I actually enjoyed this one quite a bit. The leg positioning on it is kind of interesting, and I've had one or two little tricks that I've had that have worked a little bit better or made it work a little better. But I think like the real key on that one is to when I grab under my opponent, I like to replace the ground. And what that means is that if you can get your arm or your leg in between your opponent and the ground, you are the ground. And so like all of the pressure relief that they could get, all of the pressure that they could be putting against the ground is gone. And so like things like adjusting your hips or adjusting your shoulders at least is taken away from you because you're suddenly about 2 or 3 inches off the ground, whereas previously you would be like right on the ground, and you could use the pressure of your body against the ground to help you maneuver a bit. Anyway, so I like to get up under my opponent on that, and I was grabbing for the opposite side armpit. And I think that one is really important because it allows you to keep additional pressure on the upper body while you're trying to address the disengaging the leg below. So like you reach around the head and under the armpit, I go for the armpit or the lat under the armpit there, and you bring your hip in really tight under the armpit on the close side, and then you sneak your foot up. You kind of heel toe it up until your opponent has to switch over the leg triangle that they've the pressure that they've got on your leg. They have to switch it up. They have to reverse it just to keep pressure on you. But that keeps the knee really high, and so you can just take your elbow and press on the outside of the knee, or the inside of the knee rather, and just shuffle it right off of you. And so I really, really like that one. But like I said, I took it a step further with this particular gentleman. As soon as I was able to get my knee down, I would use the pressure on my leg that I've got the knee down on to continue holding his leg to the ground. And then it's just a matter of bringing my other leg up to the top of his leg, the top of his right leg, and just pushing it down a little bit, and then I can disengage my right leg from between his legs. And so that's kind of what I did, but I took it a little bit further in that I hooked my left arm really, really tight, under for that armpit. I was really digging up into his lat basically hooking the bottom of, or the top of his latissimus dorsi under his armpit, right? And using that kind of like a handle to hold me really tight to him. And then I managed to shuffle over to one side, get my arm up on the other side of his head, and just cupped it together and squoze. Luckily for me, like I said, I managed to get that arm all the way under him, or in between us, so basically when my body was pinning that arm, and he didn't have that to grab a hold of me or create a frame or anything like that. A lot of fun. Anyway, I'm keeping it kind of short on jiu-jitsu today just because, like I said, we did so much technique. So much drilling, or rolling rather, that I'm kind of like befuddled trying to remember all the stuff that we did. But we did do like positional sparring from the position that we were working. And the one thing that I do recall about it is switching the hips around to where, like if you're head to head with your opponent, you're on top of your opponent, they've got their legs wrapped around yours, to take, and instead of holding them down, taking your left hand and putting it down towards their right hip, or their left hip rather, and then snugging your elbow up under their arm and kind of pinning them down that way. I really enjoyed that one, because like there's this thing we were doing from there to where you try and set it up as a Kimura, where you put your hand on your head and they try and reach through to like grab your lapel or something like that, and you grab the hand when it comes through and you set it up for a Kimura. The thing I really liked about this position is that from there you can do a lot with that. There's all kinds of pressure that you could be holding as an anchor point for something else. Pardon me, had the belches there. And yes, by the way, I am naked. So holding it from that position, the Kimura, the one thing I was trying to do from there was I would hold it really, really tight to my chest, and then the thing we were working is to roll over the shoulder, just do a complete shoulder roll after you've got your legs disengaged, and then like scrambling from there without disengaging the arm, holding on to that Kimura grip. And I really liked that because it allowed me to keep control of my opponent after I rolled over, to where I can roll them up on their side and take them to the Kimura again. And, so yeah, that's exactly what I did. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music, as we have not thrown into any yet. And I had this one kind of loaded up, and so I'm just going to go ahead and do it because it's Body Count, Institutionalized 2014, here on Coin Metal. First Dance. And a little Dark Angel there with Psychosexuality. I don't know if Gene Hoglan was drumming for them then. I think so, but he's one of those guys that it seems like he's in everything. It's like Tommy Victor. Guy is in everything. Everything. As a matter of fact, it's I know he worked on the Probot project with David Grohl from what was that band? Foo Fighters. Anyway, they did a side project. They've actually done a couple side projects together. The Probot one, and also another one called Teenage Time Wasters. And I may or may not get that. But anyway, I had heard a song off of Teenage Time Wasters, and I don't know if that's the name of the band or the name of the little band that they did the song with. But David Grohl gets these wild hairs up his butt every once in a while, where he'll gather up a bunch of guys from really, really diverse aspects of music. Usually all metal people, but like Igor and Max Cavalera from Sepultura, or Cavalera Conspiracy, and guys from what do you call it? He had Lemmy when Lemmy was still alive. He did a couple things with Lemmy. And basically, I think it's like opportunities for Dave to get to play drums, because he doesn't typically play drums, with all of the songs that he does with Foo Fighters. I think he does with one or two, but I'm not entirely sure on that. He was the drummer for oh, damn it, what was that other band? The lead singer's dead. Kurt Cobain, Nirvana. There we go. Sorry, Nirvana, when they hit the whole grunge movement, when it hit down in LA, we were already really burnt out. It's like I want to say 3 or 4 major waves of metal bands and metal genres that came up after Metallica. They all hit in Southern California. So there was, first it was Metallica, then it was I think it was Van Hagar for a short period of time. And when Metallica came out with their Black album, that kind of derailed them and kind of kicked them out of the cool sect. And so people were looking around for something else to listen to. And of course, then it was Guns N' Roses and 500,000 other Guns N' Roses copycat bands. And the people that were in Guns N' Roses, they were in like 3 other bands. And there was like crossovers between them where, they had a band, and then drugs and alcohol or payment or whatever, they split up. And so you end up with like LA Guns, and you end up with Guns N' Roses and Tracy Guns, and a whole grouping of like 20 or 30 guys that they end up in their own little bands. And then it kind of splintered off even further, and you started getting into like White Lion and shit like that. But like I said, by that time, we were looking for, again, something new. And then Nirvana came out of nowhere, and that whole Seattle grunge scene came up. And so by then, I was just like completely burned out on it. I was done with it. And in LA, it seemed like it would happen there before it happened a lot of other places. And so even though the grunge movement started in Seattle, it made its way down the West Coast really, really quick. As a matter of fact, there's a band up here, local, Floater, and I've seen them in concert, and I gotta say, they put on a really good show. But anyway, so I was really burned out, and by the time Nirvana came around, I'm just like, no, I'm done. And shortly thereafter, Korn hit. And that was one I just like completely missed out on. And that was I don't know how to describe it. It's like everybody was kind of burnt out on the chill music. I mean, because like from Guns N' Roses up through Nirvana and most of grunge was meh. It wasn't like really, really exciting. And all the bands that were really, really exciting and doing something really, really different, they all ended up doing grunge. They all ended up doing a grunge album just to, get on with the wave, and it was sad to watch, because like if you take, for example, say Soundgarden, and you listen to Bad Motorfinger, that is a beastly album, and it's not just all grunge though. There's some grunge stuff to it. But it's not all grungy, And it seemed like the focus was put more on their grunge aspect, because again, that was what was selling at the time. But anyway, let's get on into some crypto stuff, because I got a ton of it here. First one I got here is on BitcoinExchangeGuide.com. A preview of country's crypto regulatory outlook heading into the G20 summit, and what's next. And this is by the Bitcoin Exchange Guide news team, authored on May 29th, 2019. Let's make sure this thing isn't aggregated from somewhere else and isn't somebody else's article. No. Looks like this might be the original one, but let's check and verify. They usually give like a URL relating to where it originated. Okay, it looks like it's actually theirs, so let's go with it. The G20 countries are gearing up for the upcoming G20 summit, and the main aim of the upcoming event will largely be focused towards implementing unified crypto regulations set by intergovernmental organizations such as the Financial Action Task Force. The European Central Bank has confirmed that despite the challenges posed by crypto assets to the euro area's financial stability, it is still manageable. The G20 nations have reaffirmed their support for the FATF recommended policies in areas such as anti-money laundering as well as crypto assets. The FATF recently conducted their annual private sector consultative forum in Austria, which saw participation from over 300 representatives from the private sector. The Financial Actions Task Force comprises of 36 countries and 2 international organizations, including the European Commission. During the recent forum, FATF said, quote, "The discussions focused on the mapping of virtual asset services and business models and on the implementation of specific FATF recommendations." The FATF in its annual report also put out a guideline for the member G20 countries for regulating and standardizing crypto assets. The Financial Action Task Force further promised, quote, "to continue assisting jurisdictions and the private sector in implementing a risk-based approach to regulating virtual asset service providers, including their supervision and monitoring." While providing a standard guideline to help the G20 nations in formalizing their crypto regulations, the FATF also emphasized on various risks that come along with the standardization of digital assets, such as money laundering. The report states, quote, "Technological innovations, including those underlying virtual assets, may deliver significant benefits to the financial system and the broader economy. Russia needs to get their regulatory framework finalized." Russia, one of the G20 nations, has been facing constant delays in finalizing the crypto regulations. Now they have come out to announce that today they would be following the standards set by the FATF to help them create a standard framework for the use of digital assets in the country. The Russian President Vladimir Putin has asked the concerned authorities to finalize the regulatory framework in July last year, but there was no progress made on the order. Putin again ordered that the authorities to complete the framework by July this year. Looking at the progress made on the recent order, the finalization of the framework might get delayed again. Anatoly Aksakov, sorry bro, the chairman of the State Duma Committee on Financial Market, has recently said that they are facing issues due to requirements set by the FATF. The chairman said that the guidelines set by the FATF either need to be implemented into the law on digital assets or a separate bill needed to be passed. He explained, quote, "The law on digital financial assets has been suspended. There were FATF decisions that require us to resolve issues related to Bitcoin and so on." Oh God, they're addressing Bitcoin specifically. Another report in the local media houses suggests that the laws on regulating crypto and digital assets may come into force in the spring season. The reports are based on Deputy Chairman of the Bank of Russia, Olga Skorbogovatova, recent comments. The report quoted her saying, quote, "The law on digital financial assets, on crowdfunding, etc., all these bills are in fairly high degree of readiness. Colleagues from the State Duma committees are very helpful. We expect that these laws can be passed during the spring session. She further stressed that these laws, quote, "are extremely important for the country and will provide an opportunity to implement new projects." No, it won't. Japan is helping other G20 nations, while South Korea emphasizes on regulatory consistency. The upcoming G20 summit will be hosted by Japan, which happens to be one of the most crypto-compliant nations with the consumer-friendly regulatory framework put into place. The country has also shown its interest in helping other nations with their regulatory dilemma by working on implementing global standards on crypto assets. The House of Representatives recently passed a crypto bill with several resolutions. One of the media publications reported, quote, "We have grasped the regulatory trends of G20 countries and cooperated with each country to achieve international harmony." The Financial Services Agency, Japan's top financial regulatory, released a report last December which states, quote, "To manage and mitigate the risks emerging from virtual assets, countries should ensure that virtual asset service providers are regulated for AML-CFT purposes." South Korea, another G20 nation, has often echoed for the regulatory consistency and have announced several times that they would be complying with the Unified Crypto Regulatory Standards. Choi Jong-koo, chairman of the Financial Services Commission, said that, quote, "Transnational cooperation is necessary to regulate virtual currencies." Unfortunately, you're not going to get it. The FSC chairman also emphasized on the importance of G20 nations adhering to the international standards provided by the FATF, quote, "to minimize regulatory inconsistencies." Are you fucking kidding me, bitch? We live on regulatory inconsistencies. Get over yourself. The possible changes in creating a standard regulatory guideline. Chainalysis, one of the prominent blockchain and crypto analytic firms, gave feedback on the guidelines set by the FATF. The firm said that the guidelines set by the FATF would have profound implications for the cryptocurrency industry. Chainalysis feedback report explained, quote, "There are clear technical obstacles that prevent cryptocurrency businesses from being able to comply with these standards. Cryptocurrencies were originally designed as peer-to-peer financial system that has no central authority and no intermediaries." The analytics firm went on to note that in order to adhere to the FATF guidelines, crypto exchanges can use transparency from the shared ledger to form an effective risk-based approach. The firm went on to suggest that the exchanges should take up on the responsibility to conduct KYC and store the data safely. Crypto exchanges should start linking users' KYC information with their transactions, as it is not available on the public ledger. No, they should not. They should just keep doing what they're doing. The feedback report explained further, quote, "Forcing onerous investment and friction onto regulated businesses who are critical allies to law enforcement could reduce their prevalence, drive activity to decentralized and peer-to-peer exchanges, and lead to de-risking by financial institutions." Chainalysis noted that these measures would decrease the transparency which is currently available to the law enforcement agencies. Yeah, that's right. By trying to force us to fit into your bullshit regulations, you're going to make it less transparent than it currently is. And not for us, for you. We're just going to move to different means of transacting, and it's just going to circumvent you entirely, and you won't have any interface with it. There's already a percentage of the market that operates just like that. You know, that they aren't on regulated exchanges or anything like that. And I see more and more ads every day for services that do exchanges and do trades, but do not require AML KYC. And I believe the reason why I'm seeing it is because we're preparing for you already. You know, you go ahead. Put the thumb down. See what happens. You're going to get some compliance, but not enough to really make any difference, because the vast majority of this market can operate outside of the realm of your regulatory capability. It's like, okay, so you ban, Walmart from taking Bitcoin transactions without going through a third party, right? all you're going to do is cut Walmart out of the ability to do transactions on the open blockchain, and that's if they bother to actually comply with the regulatory requirements that you're trying to impose on them. They might be looking at all the money going by them, and all the customers complaining that they can't just spend their Litecoin or Bitcoin Cash there, and say, you know what, we want that money. Fuck you people. We're going to take the money anyway. And we're going to do it without a third-party intermediary, because that introduces all kinds of additional cruft and additional bullshit that we do not have to suffer in using these currencies. And I know for a fact that there's some companies out there that are just waiting for this whole battle to shake out. And all I can say is you people are losing money. While you're waiting for the Fat F or the G20 or the EU or the IMF or anybody else to state explicitly how you're supposed to deal with these currencies, there's going to be someone else that is going to be taking advantage of the speed of settlement that cryptocurrencies enable, and they're just going to be, you're going to be looking at their dust. They're going to see you in the rearview mirror, might even wave goodbye to you on their way out of the orbit. But that's what's going on right now. While you're jerking off trying to figure out how you're going to cram regular business into this regulatory framework and grasp a hold of cryptocurrencies, while you're doing all that bullshit, we're already developing ways around you. We've been developing ways around you for 6-7 years. So, it's not like they're going to throw the hammer and it's going to be game over. I'm expecting it to go the other way. That basically they're going to go broke trying to enforce these bullshit regulations. And they might stop some big players from getting in, but the big players are going to be looking at that money too. And eventually they're going to be saying, hey, we want some of that fucking money too, man. We want to get paid. All that monetary value is going out of systems that we actually exchange in and going into systems that we don't exchange in and we can't exchange in because of all this bullshit regulation. That, if we maybe create a little subsidiary and do it all through the subsidiary and maybe put it in the Cayman Islands or somewhere outside of the regulatory envelope that we're trapped within, that we'll be able to take advantage of that, and nobody will be the wiser because we're really, really smart, being a billion-dollar company or multi-billion-dollar company, that we can sort it all out amongst ourselves with our own distribution channels and so on and so forth, and just circumvent these people entirely. A little bit of partnership with maybe McDonald's and few others that have a lot of sites everywhere, and set up like a line of sight network between you. You'd probably be able to cover most of the United States just on the back of McDonald's alone. You throw say Starbucks in there, maybe one or two others like Napa Auto Parts. Get you guys together, set up line of sight networks, and you could be transacting Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies on them, and nobody's the wiser. You aren't even hooked up to the network that's allowing the transactions to happen, except for maybe at the endpoints where you're wanting to interface with the Bitcoin blockchain, or shit, you could probably be hosting some mining within your own subnet. That shit's all. It's entirely possible. And so I got this next article, and it reflects a little bit more of this, but it's from a surprising voice, because this guy's been nothing but critical of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. And so here it is. It's on ccn.com. Bitcoin skeptic Mark Cuban torches, quote, useless SEC in withering takedown. And this is by Samantha Chang, authored on the 29th of May, 2019. And no penis. by CCN. Billionaire Bitcoin skeptic Mark Cuban torched the Securities and Exchange Commission as, quote, useless bureaucrats who bring ridiculous lawsuits against investors to justify their worthless existence. God damn, I couldn't agree more. Quote, I'm obviously not a fan of the SEC, Cuban told CCN. I think they prefer regulation through litigation, and that creates problems for everyday investors. Cuban, whose net worth tops $4.1 billion, is a tech entrepreneur who owns the Dallas Mavericks NBA team. Cuban, SEC puts investors on double secret probation. Cuban's anti-SEC comments on CCN mirror the blistering remarks he made to Yahoo Finance last week. Video below. Cuban says the SEC leaves investors in the dark about securities laws. Then it unethically builds cases against unwitting investors using their secret rules. Quote, they're kind of useless. Had the SEC really wanted to make markets safer, they would publish bright-line guidelines. For instance, there is no specific law on insider trading. There's reasons for that, Mark. There are only legal precedents that have been set as a result of various cases that the SEC has brought. Quote, if you're just an individual investor, you have no idea. You're not a lawyer, and you shouldn't be responsible for talking to a lawyer before you buy or sell a stock. Goddamn right. Mark Cuban, SEC bullies individual investors. To underscore the SEC's, quote, stupidity and bullying, Cuban cited the example of a guy who was prosecuted for buying stock after he figured out intuitively that his company was going to be sold. Quote, the guy was going to work. It was a railroad company in Illinois. One day in the parking lot that everybody had shared, there was a bunch of limos. And then another day, there was a bunch of limos. Then the guy literally guessed, that the company was being sold, so he bought stock. The SEC sued him. The SEC lost, but that's just some of the ridiculous stuff they do. Cuban battled ridiculous SEC in court for 5 years. Mark Cuban is no stranger to clashing with the SEC. In 2008, the SEC sued Cuban, accusing him of insider trading after he sold 600,000 shares in internet search company Mama.com, worth $7.9 million, to avoid a $750,000 loss. Dude, that's just prudent. After dragging him through the courts for 5 years, a Texas jury acquitted Cuban of all charges in 2013. Quote, when I was battling the SEC, it took everything I had, not just to say F you every minute of every day, because it was ridiculous. The things that they said about me, the ridiculous approach they took was outrageous. During those years battling the SEC, Cuban refused to settle, even though he could have ended the lawsuit by paying him a $2 million fine. Shakedown. A drop in the bucket for the billionaire. But Cuban was furious over what he considered the SEC's bullying and malicious prosecution. After he was acquitted, Cuban lashed out at the SEC's lead prosecutor, saying, quote, she stood up there and lied. That's believable to me. At the time, Cuban told reporters that the reason why he didn't settle was because the SEC plotted to destroy him, and he wasn't about to let them steamroll him. Quote, it's personal. You take all these years of my life, it's personal. Goddamn right. Cuban convinced Elon Musk to settle his SEC case. In October 2018, Cuban called fellow billionaire Elon Musk when he was in the SEC's crosshairs and convinced him to settle, according to the Wall Street Journal. 6 months later, in April of 2019, Musk did settle with the SEC amid their objections to his Twitter habits. Musk has since been more careful with his tweeting. Elon Musk, I do not respect the SEC. Like Cuban, Musk has slammed the SEC as useless, vindictive flunkies. I happen to agree. In December 2018, Musk drew the agency's ire after saying he has no respect for them. The SEC clapped back 2 months later when it filed a contempt motion against Musk that matter is now settled, at least for now. Quote, "I want to be clear, I do not respect the SEC. I do not respect them." And that was Musk. Mark Cuban is skeptical of both gold and Bitcoin. Separately, Mark Cuban, like Elon Musk, is a Bitcoin skeptic. In April 2018, Cuban boldly declared his hatred for both Bitcoin and gold, saying that they're not viable alternatives to currency. Quote, "I see gold and Bitcoin as being the same thing. They're book collectibles. Their value is based off of the supply and demand. I'd sooner buy a pet rock." Because of Bitcoin's extreme volatility, Cuban says you should only invest in Bitcoin if you can handle losing all of your money. Quote, "If you're a true adventurer and you really want to throw the Hail Mary, you might take 10% and put it in Bitcoin or Ethereum. But if you do that, you've got to pretend like you've already lost your money." Billionaire Mark Cuban hates Bitcoin and gold equally. I'd buy a pet rock first, yeah. Okay, cool. So yeah, for the most part, I do agree with Mr. Cuban. Although I see some flaws in his rationale, but that's just me. I mean, I think that he's right though about the SEC being nothing but a bunch of vindictive bullies. Basically, I see them like the how should I say this? Kind of like the protection racket arm of the NYDFS. Like if the NYDFS doesn't like you, they stick the SEC on you. And if they don't get you, then they will probably address you if they don't like you badly enough. But it's there is a reason why there aren't laws explicitly against at least not explicitly enough to actually define what the criminal activity is, in fact, with regard to money laundering. Or not money laundering, insider trading. Sorry about that. And a lot of it has to do with actually Congress themselves. See, they help draw up the regulatory boards and they help draw up the regulations themselves. And so when they're doing that, they have insider knowledge of how certain regulations will impact market participants. And they set up their trades and whatnot according to that knowledge. I mean, if there were ever like a better example of conflict of interest, especially when you consider the fact that former executives of like Goldman Sachs and whatnot, they run the goddamn Federal Reserve. And so this incestuous relationship, if there were ever a brighter example of a conflict of interest, I've never seen it. And I find it so shocking that nobody's really tackled that angle of it. If they were to get a little more aggressive with the SEC and address the specific individuals that are involved in their prosecution and kind of ferret out the relationships there might be between that person's office, and the NYDFS, or any banks that are regulated by the NYDFS, such as, say, Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley Chase or whatever the fuck, JP Morgan, that they would find that there are incestuous relationships behind them. Enough so that, from all outside observation, if you were just looking at it, it would probably look like a mafia to you. And I've gone to characterizing it like that, but I really shouldn't be able to. I got to say that. I really shouldn't be able to point at it and say, this looks like a shakedown by some mafia racket going on. Instead of this person is operating in a way that can negatively impact the entire global economy, we should probably do something about it. We've seen, piecemeal actions against Tether and other stablecoin creators. But, if there were ever a better case of an actual criminal activity going on in crypto, I have yet to see it. As far as I'm concerned, every single stablecoin out there right now, and I don't give a fuck what the mechanism is or whatever, if they are claiming to have a peg to US dollars, it is nothing but counterfeit fiat, basically. It's digital counterfeit fiat. They don't have the printing press to print them out, but I pretty much consider all counterfeit dollars. And they act as counterfeit money in the market, in that they depreciate the value of Bitcoin by giving an apparent supply of US dollars on the market when they aren't actually US dollars. So when you exchange them for Bitcoin, you're exchanging Bitcoin for something that doesn't actually have any backing, or potentially has no backing in US dollars, that can never be redeemed for US dollars. And of course you wouldn't know that unless you were trying to cash them out. But the point being is that when you do that transaction, it doesn't have any impact on the US dollars in circulation. So all of that feedback of the US dollar versus whatever it is, because there's an intermediary in between there, the apparent price of one item in the other can be distorted by that intermediary. There's a reason why we're able to transact Bitcoin as quickly as we can, and it's so we don't need an intermediary in its stead, and specifically to avoid this kind of market distortion that I'm talking about. I mean, really, if the NYDFS wanted to hammer down on anybody, they would get more serious on trying to hammer down on iFinex. And the fact that they aren't leads me again to believe that they are nothing more than a subsidiary of the Federal Reserve Bank. That's right. Those are the only people I know that can get away with $3 billion worth of "we're good for it." Because that's about as much assurance as we have that Tether will remain solvent. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And I wanted to play this one last time, but we never got around to it, so here it is. Down, Bury Me in Smoke, here on Coin Metal. And that was Nevermore with The Politics of Ecstasy. And so the next one I got up here is on ccn.com, and this is by P.H. Midori, authored May 29th, 2019. IBM's $1 million Bitcoin bull mysteriously exits tech giant as global blockchain lead. IBM's head of blockchain, Jesse Lund, has reportedly left the company. Lund previously predicted the Bitcoin price could hit $1 million within our lifetime, citing the scarcity and growth of interest in the space. Jesse Lund's still optimistic about blockchain payments. Lund told CoinDesk, quote, that he is still optimistic about blockchain as a payments platform. He helped create the IBM WorldWire platform in partnership with Stellar, which has so far made numerous inroads with notable banks. He stated, quote, yes, I've left IBM, but I'm still optimistic about payments innovation using blockchain. IBM is one of the many companies working on cross-border payment solutions for banks and financial institutions, something we solved about around a decade ago. Lund had previously been part of R3, a consortium of banks like Wells Fargo, where he was previously employed, which picked up Mike Hearn after he quit Bitcoin development. Lund or IBM gave no explanation for his exit. Bitcoin has recently been bullish. Interest in blockchain is returning. A few weeks ago, Lund commented on an article about Microsoft and JP Morgan Chase partnering, saying, quote, Great to see some more major players piling on this use case as we approach the tipping point of transforming global financial services. What's next is an extended solution to bringing fungibility and liquidity and FX across major banking institutions. I wonder if any of the other big players are working toward that. Lund hasn't moved on. Lund's position at IBM remains the last one on his LinkedIn profile, indicating that he hasn't moved to some other blockchain company. Another executive in IBM's blockchain division, Jerry Cuomo, remains. According to his biography, Cuomo invented the, quote, "someone is typing" technology now used in most instant messaging applications. Quote, Jerry holds the prestigious title of IBM Fellow, which is the highest technical position at IBM, pioneering emerging technology projects in the areas of blockchain, API economy, mobile computing, cloud computing, web application servers, integration software, Java, instant messaging software, filling out over 65 U.S. patents across these areas. Jerry's most visible patent is the first use of the, quote, "someone is typing" indicator found in instant messaging applications. This innovation is used by billions of users around the world every day via their iPhones, MSFT's Messenger, and IBM's Same Time. Actually, it's used in Telegram, or they have something similar to it, and also in what's that other one? Telegram, Discord also has something like that. Quote, Worldwire, IBM launches Stellar-based blockchain's payment platform. Yeah, I don't care about that. Jesse Lund's ambitious predictions for Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are shared by many of in the industry, but could be a long ways off in reality. Lund had previously said, quote, "I have a long-term outlook. It goes back to that discussion about the utility of the network with a higher price. I see Bitcoin at $1 million someday. I like that number because if Bitcoin is at $1 million, then the Satoshi is on value parity with the US penny. And that means there are over $20 trillion worth of liquidity on this network. Think about $20 trillion in liquidity and how many changes things like that, how that changes things like corporate payments. The prediction is based on the idea that a substantial portion of the world's wealth will be concentrated in decentralized ledger technologies. At present, the various assets in the class are at best exotic and volatile. Yes, the way we like them. Yeah, I disagree with a lot of this, mostly because, well, I mean, as far as Lund and what he's doing, I really don't care. You know, he seems like to me somebody who got involved in cryptocurrencies via R3 and his association in Wells Fargo, and has kind of gone the route of, you know, it reminds me of like a turnstile. You know, he's gone all the way around, and he's come back out again. Usually guys like this, they'll either get rehired by one of the big institutionals, you know, so like Microsoft. I mean, his locations where he can go to now with IBM on his resume, it's pretty thick. You know, he could go to any of the institutional investment houses or legacy banks and get in no problem. Same thing with regulatory space. Plenty of places he could be going there. But in the longer term, I see the way that IBM has been trying to participate in this industry, or has been participating in this industry. I see it as something that will eventually end up being just a big waste of money. That the networks that they're working with, because they're their networks, will have some sort of bias and will cause issues later on for their customers when entities start fighting back. You know, I mean, it's like there's this thing in cryptocurrencies where you'll notice where all the hacks, or at least most of the hacks, happen at the exchange level. And this is because exchanges are holding millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars worth of crypto. Okay? And so attacking some little pissant here or there is nothing. Okay? You want to go after, you want to make the most money on your attack as possible, right? And so when you're thinking about participants, like the more money they have, the more adversaries they are going to have. You know, this guy, he's talking about $1 million Bitcoin. Okay, let's get serious. Bitcoin at $1 million doesn't necessarily mean that there's been this vast investment into Bitcoin. It could also mean that the US dollar is depreciated in value so much and hyperinflated so much that Bitcoin becomes worth $1 million because there's just that much fucking liquidity in US dollars out on the market. You know, so it's like when you're looking at it and you're saying, oh yeah, $1 million Bitcoin. Okay, well, what's a gallon of gasoline in an economy where Bitcoin is worth $1 million? Are you still going to say it's under $5? You know, anywhere. Will gasoline be under $5 a gallon anywhere on planet Earth if Bitcoin is $1 million? That's the question you have to be asking yourself. And if it does, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, oil is a finite resource. And so I think that in the longer term, it's just going to get more expensive. You know, as we're running low on conventional reserves, which I think a lot of the reserves in the Middle East are overinflated. I think they're also a lot of overinflated in estimations of what they're going to pull out of things like the Bakken or Texas. That these oil fields are running dry, man. You can't pump billions of gallons of fucking oil out of them every year and not expect the available supply to go down. I mean, there's a reason why they schedule where they're going to drill according to how much money they're going to be expecting to get for a barrel of oil. You know, they have like, you know, $50 a barrel oil, and then they have $100 a barrel oil, and that's like an order of priorities where they're saying, okay, well, the US dollar versus oil is going to have to be at $100 to even bother going after this oil. Because if we pull it out, it's going to cost us, you know, whatever amount over what we're actually getting for the oil per barrel. And we just can't take that kind of loss. You know, banks are going to stop investing in this shit if they can't expect a real return on their oil. You know. So yeah, $1 million Bitcoin. It's you got to ask yourself what else is going on in the economy. You know, can I still buy an Apple for less than $5? And when I say Apple, I'm not talking about a computer. I'm talking about an apple off of a tree. You know, can I still get one of those for under $5 if Bitcoin is at $1 million? Probably not. So anyway, I think that the estimation of where the concentration is going to be in the longer term, that, you know, a lot of these guys are expecting that only big institutional players are going to be doing things such as mining and existing as exchanges. And what they don't seem to understand is that if that's the case, then the number of really interested parties, meaning the parties that are actually making a significant amount of profit and are incentivized to participate in the system, is very, very finite. The number of people making money off of it, like on transaction fees and shit like that, is very, very finite, not including you. You know, it's like the idea of replacing everybody in the manufacturing chains with robots. If you do that, You don't have anybody to buy the fucking products that the robots are making. And so it's the same thing with cryptocurrencies. If we're not mining them, how much trust do we really have in them, or should we have in them? If we're not participating in the development or the mining of them, or providing services that take cryptocurrencies as payment, if we're not doing those things, then what interest do we have in them? And if we're not interfacing directly with them, we're having to interface with them through a third party, and that party is going to be making more money off of it, just being a rent sucker on our backs. And so this is where I find the I take umbrage with the idea of regulating this space at all. Because the fact of the matter is these are the most transparent financial systems that have ever existed on this planet. At least since we've gone away from gold, where you were like circulating physical gold. It's like, this is an ounce of gold. It took me X amount of hours to extract this ounce of gold out of the ground, and so that's how much of my life this thing represents to me, and how much I want to cash out of it. And that's the interest level of cryptocurrencies. It's not just a matter of rooting for a cryptocurrency, saying, yeah, you should transact. No. You gotta be actually exchanging things for it to have value. At least to the market at large. It could have value to you because, value is in the eye, or the mind rather, of the bag holder. And that's the same everywhere you go. It doesn't change regardless of what economy we're talking about. And speaking of separate economies, I think these guys are going to find out that they're going to find themselves in an environment where they've been separated entirely from the economy of their own nation. That the people themselves, because of additional pressures that they're experiencing due to additional controls that are being imposed on their financial systems, will shift to financial systems that do not have those levels of control in them. And so here it is. It's on cryptopolitan.com by Ahmad Asghar, going by the picture and the name, yes, penis. And this is authored on May 29th, 2019. No indication of time zone. Shame on you, Ahmad. But yes, penis. Malawi risking disconnect as cryptocurrencies are declared illegal. This is going to be fun. According to the latest report, southeastern African country Malawi announced that Reserve Bank of Malawi will not accept any digital currency that is not recognized as legal tender. RBM's Governor Delitso Kabambe stated that citizens of Malawi have been warned that the government does not intend to recognize cryptocurrencies as legal tender, and they will not be supporting any ventures related to the digital currency. Any transaction or investment will be made at one's own risk. Sounds like I should go to Malawi. Furthermore, warning related to cryptocurrency was also issued by the governor, asserting that risks, exchange hacks, scandals, Ponzi schemes, and crypto scams associated with investments in the much-hyped digital currency. Kabambe further stated that although the Reserve Bank of Malawi and the government of Malawi do not have a positive opinion about the digital currency, yet they both are mindful of the prospects of the blockchain technology and worldwide developments in the crypto industry. This stance from the government and central bank could affect Malawi's prospect in the global domain, as more and more of the emerging markets and countries are looking to tap blockchain technology. Like many other nations, Malawi is reluctant to introduce a new form of currency in their system, but with time and mainstream adoption of digital currency, the scenario might be different in the future. What I see here, it looks like a little bit of regulatory uncertainty, and I think that could be good for Malawi. Just the fact that their government is not actually taking it as real currency, it doesn't matter. If the people are willing to accept it as currency, that's what they're going to do. And if there are additional price controls or any other such moves made by the Malawi government, I think that the people themselves will disassociate from the Malawi currency and their financial system entirely and go to cryptocurrencies. We can't be using cryptocurrencies without mining them. It does help if we mine them, though. But nonetheless, we can use them in places that don't have miners and don't have exchanges and so on and so forth. And so this idea that we need government approval in order to do it, it's pretty silly. I think that's one of the reasons why they didn't explicitly ban it. As this title is kind of misleading. It says Malawi risking disconnect as cryptocurrencies declared illegal. That's not really what happened. It just said that the government just made a statement saying that they're not accepting it as legal tender. It's a whole different thing there. It doesn't mean that you can't transact in it. Although, it does leave the window open for them to prosecute you or do some sort of enforcement action on you in Malawi. They could still go after you. However, it's not explicitly forbidden. And I think, honestly, that's the best approach that any government can take to cryptocurrencies is just face them as something that, no, you're not going to be able to do anything about them, but that doesn't mean that you have to help anybody out if they get burned. You don't have any responsibility, right? You don't have any authority, no responsibility. If you leave that to us, we will fucking figure it out. Because, there's no use involving yourself in mining a cryptocurrency that nobody's going to accept as currency or allow you to exchange it for something that people will use for currency in your local market. There's just no point to it. But there are enough interests out there and there are enough live networks out there that you could be conducting your monetary transactions in it today without even having to worry about a long term. If you can have an exchange, if you have an exchange available where you can turn whatever cryptocurrency it is, say it's Monero or it's Ethereum or it's Litecoin, Ripple, whatever it is, if you have the means to convert it to your local currency and get it in your pocket within a reasonable period of time, why wouldn't you do it? I don't see a reason. If I were working in a place where, say, I made pizzas, right? I could probably have at least a first confirmation on a transaction done in Litecoin before the pie is even out of the fucking oven. So I get the assurance on my end that yes, I've been paid, and I could probably even put a market a limit order in, or just a market order, just do the straight exchange at whatever currency I want on an exchange before the pie is out of the oven. I can probably complete that whole transfer and initiate the transaction to get that money. Say I cash it out to Chinese yen because I'm making pizza in China. I don't know. But I put the money in my bank account or initiate the transaction to withdraw it from the exchange and get it into my bank account before the pie is even out of the oven. Now, consider the implications of what I've just said to you. That's possible right now. So the idea that we need some additional regulatory framework or a whole bunch of oversight, no, it doesn't add any value to what we're doing. We're already doing international transactions at light speed, and the transactions are going through at a successful enough rate that people are depending on it. That people are shifting to it. And so I got this other article, if I can dig it up here. I didn't know exactly which order I wanted to go about it. I just had like a general idea of what I wanted to cover today. And so this next one here is on BitcoinExchangeGuide.com. Financial regulators in Germany have received 0 cryptocurrency fraud complaints to date. This is by Carl T., authored May 28th, 2019. So yes, penis. The Financial Regulatory Authority of Germany claims that it has no knowledge of, quote, cyber incidents or market manipulation on trading platforms in the country. This is according to a recently uploaded press release on May 28th. Germany's regulator without info about cyber incidents. According to information released by the Federal Financial Supervisory Authority, BaFin, the German regulatory agency in charge of controlling banks, financial services, and institutions, has provided answers about cyber attacks, fraud, and money laundering activities in the country. The report was released after a request from the Free Democratic Party that is interested in learning more about the characteristics of the crypto market in Germany. According to Cointelegraph, a translation of the response shows that the agency does not categorize financial crimes in a different way when virtual currencies are involved. They have also informed that these same rules apply to market manipulation. The agency also has acknowledged that Bitcoin and other digital assets can be used to launder money. The report makes reference to illegal activities that were conducted through the darknet and that were performed using Bitcoin. About it, the report also reads as follows, quote, the Federal Criminal Police Office is aware of investigations and convictions for money laundering in which illegal Bitcoin revenues from narcotics transactions on the dark web were washed through bank accounts or in money laundering services that were offered on the darknet for illegal revenue from drug trafficking with a payout in Bitcoin. There are different financial regulators around the world that are worried about these issues and how to deal with them. This is not something that can be easily addressed, and institutions and government agencies are trying to understand better how to protect investors. Yeah, whatever. Although this is clearly something that is affecting several countries, the Japanese National Police Agency found that virtual currency-related money laundering accounted for just 2% of all the recorded cases of money laundering. We also have written about South Korea and how the government has recently met in order to discuss further regulations to protect investors from the rapid expansion of the crypto market. Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that. I wish they actually provided some useful links with regard to this. Let's see here. See if we can find one. No. Nope. We're denied. Like, I would have liked the a link to the damn report itself. Let's see here. Let's see if this one leads to it. Nope. No, unfortunately not. Anyway, so I think this is, pretty much reflective of what I've been talking about with, the fact that there really isn't an incredible amount of criminal activity going on in cryptocurrencies. There is some. I'm not going to deny it. But when you're looking at actual criminal activity versus fiat currencies, we're not even a fly speck on a fly speck. We're minute. We're microscopic. There are much bigger crimes going on by regulated entities in fiat currencies and legacy markets as is. It's not like we're adding any criminality. We might be providing an additional avenue here and there, but the fact of the matter is that these entities, the very entities that abuse our current legacy markets, are acting in much the same way within crypto. So the answer really isn't hammer down on crypto, it's hammer down on these entities. You probably can figure out who they are. Anyway, this is on Readers.com. U.S. exchanges must face renewed high-frequency trading claims, judge. And this is by Jonathan Stemple. New York, Reuters. A Manhattan federal judge has ordered 7 U.S. stock exchanges to face proposed class action claims that they defrauded ordinary investors by quietly enabling high-frequency traders to trade faster and at better prices. U.S. District Judge Jesse Furman on Tuesday said claims against Bats Global Markets, NASDAQ, the New York Stock Exchange, and other defendants had, quote, nudged themselves across the line from conceivable to plausible, and should not be dismissed. Furman had dismissed the claims in 2015, saying the exchanges were absolutely immune from liability, but a federal appeals court overturned that finding in December of 2017. The exchanges were accused of violating federal securities laws by developing and selling high-priced services to provide advantages to favored high-frequency trading customers while concealing these services from ordinary investors. High-frequency traders were allegedly afforded access to enhanced data feeds, a greater ability to process complex orders, and permission to locate their servers near the exchange's own servers to trading signals that would be sent faster. Investors claim that they lost money as a result of the exchange's manipulative conduct. Quote, a manipulation complaint must plead with particularity to nature, purpose, and effect of the fraudulent conduct and the roles of the defendants, Furman wrote. Plaintiff's complaint does just that. The investors were led by the City of Providence, Rhode Island, pension plans for the City of Boston and the Virgin Islands, and Plumbers and Pipefitters National Pension Fund, court papers show. Lawyers for the exchanges did not immediately respond on Wednesday to requests for comment. The investors' lawyers did not immediately respond to similar requests. High-frequency traders who use computer algorithms to gain split-second trading advantages were subject to Michael Lewis's 2014 bestseller, Flash Boys. RATS is now owned by CBOE Global Markets, Inc., while the NYSE is part of the Intercontinental Exchange, Inc. The cases in regarding Berkeley's liquidity cross and high-frequency trading litigation, U.S. District Court, Southern District of New York, number 14-MD-02589. Yeah, and so here we have legacy investors on legacy systems, highly regulated, fully licensed, and yet none of that protected the market at large from their scandalous behavior. I mean, really now. You put these people in a position of trust. What do? They abuse the trust. You know, we in cryptocurrency, all we really propose is to take that away. Take the necessity to trust these people implicitly, explicitly. Take away the need for that. And we have the ability right now to track the transactions on our networks very, very, very transparently. More so than any other system that's come before it. And relating to that, I got this other article, and this one I guess is this guy's first article on Forbes, and it's David Gokhstein. My apologies if I mispronounced that, sir. But yes, penis. This is on Forbes.com. How transparency could change the world. Some people still consider Bitcoin a dirty word, especially in the banking industry. But why is that? The banking industry has many facets and functions, but certain aspects of it have changed little in decades. And while these industry standards still help a lot of people, blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies I'm going to say for this one, has the potential to help the industry improve speed, safety, security, and function of money in general. I've been involved in the cryptocurrency industry for a few years, and what I have come to realize is that if you have the ability to improve upon something, you should seize the opportunity and give it a shot. However, banking is not the only industry that cryptocurrency has the potential to improve. In fact, I believe all industries ranging from music to automobiles and logistics can utilize this technology. This would be for their benefit and for the benefit of their customers as well. The list of reasons is lengthy, and industries, businesses, and people that could benefit stretch across the globe. This includes the unbanked that are in need of a reliable and safe system to send and receive money, and even international shipping companies in need of a more efficient tracking system. A little background information about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, what they are and how they work, is required to understand the potential they have for industries previously mentioned. The original white paper by the mysterious Satoshi Nakamoto detailed a system of transacting value in the form of Bitcoin in a peer-to-peer environment directly, without the need for any third parties. Bitcoin was born from this, but what was invented was what I consider the greatest innovation since the birth of the internet. Blockchain is a distributed ledger system for record-keeping that is decentralized. This is achieved by a network of databases all over the world. No, it isn't. It's achieved by miners. It's the product of miners, individual miners, just like you, just like me, operating all across the planet and incentivized solely by the block reward, i.e. cryptocurrency, i.e. Bitcoin. I'm going to step off of this article because, to me, this is the kind of media that is meant to shift the mentality of people around concerning cryptocurrencies to be something that they are not involved in. The whole reason we have any interest in cryptocurrencies is that we are involved in making them. We mine them, we are part of the network, and so we receive the reward for our involvement in the mining of them. No miners, no reward, no blockchain. That's the way it works. This guy's trying to recategorize it in your mind as, it's just a bunch of databases all over the planet. When you do that, you replace the idea of miners with IBM. Suddenly IBM is your intermediary that's performing all your transactions for you, because they got the databases all over the planet. You don't need miners if you got a database. But you've also replaced the decentralized aspect with an individual entity. You've now created a central point of failure. Because instead of thousands of interested parties all over the planet, you got one interested party, and they've got all the fucking databases. And you've got to trust them. This is what you got to keep between your ears when you're reading these articles and you start seeing shit like, blockchain is just a database. No, it isn't. Blockchain becomes a database when it's just IBM mining it for you. When it's your next door neighbor's kid mining it for you, it's a cryptocurrency. It's a blockchain. But again, you don't get blockchains without incentivized miners. No incentivized miners, no block rewards, no blockchain. That's the reality here, kids. So yeah, I'm going to step out of this article because I don't find that kind of reinforcing that to be any good for us. I mean, I would sit here and like pick it apart for the next hour. Just telling you all the little ways that, no, this is a bunch of bullshit. This guy's just trying to fucking trick you. So you start acting on his mentality instead of the reality. But let's get into that, because we were talking about how when you do things off-chain, you're typically going to require a third-party entity to do this. We've been talking about this on this show several times, that the fees with the block size being limited only to 1 megabyte, the transaction fees for transacting on the Bitcoin blockchain, doing your transactions via the miners, it's going to go up over time. It's already gone up significantly in the migration from just $4,000 up to $5,000 and now up to $8,000. We're starting to scrape that, $10 transaction fee, and you never see anybody talking about it on Twitter, which I find amazing. I would certainly be bitching about it if I did an on-chain transaction and it cost me $10 for the transaction. I would be fucking bitching. I'd be livid. So it leads me to believe that, there's probably a lot of censorship on Twitter concerning this subject. Because usually the only references that I do see to it are people bringing up the graph and saying, hey, look, the average median the median transaction fee right now is about $6.50. Eventually that's going to go even higher. This monkey that we were talking about earlier, who's talking about $1 million Bitcoin. Imagine what the fucking transaction fee is going to be on $1 million Bitcoin. From $4,000, and it was about 20 cents then. The median transaction fee at $4 or $4,000 per Bitcoin was about 20 cents, which to me is fucking ludicrous anyway. But going forward to 8,000, like I said, I haven't checked recently, but it's probably up to around $7.50, $8 for an on-chain transaction. Okay, now expand further out to $10,000. It's another $2,000 on top of what we're at right now, or I don't know, $1,500 roughly. If we're at $10 transaction fees right now, where are we going to be at $10,000? I would wager we're probably going to be up there over $20 for transaction fees, or getting close to it, because I've noted this multiple times, but that calculator in there is progressive. It's not linear. It's not like a set percentage rate of the Bitcoin cost. It's a progressive rate. And so eventually I think that, they're basically trying to get it in your mind, use fucking Bitcoin like you do your Visa card, where you give your Bitcoin to somebody else and then you spend it at their leisure. Either limited by their ability or their willingness to transact your Bitcoin. And that article that we were reading, like I said, it's articles like that, it's media like that, that's prepping your brain for this transition, right? Where they're just talking about blockchain. They don't tell you what creates a blockchain. They don't talk about you being involved in the creation of it. And so you don't think about, gosh, maybe I ought to fire up some miners and participate in this shit. I want that. I want those transaction fees. I want that fucking block reward. And see, if you're not thinking about that, you don't have any understanding really of what's supporting all of these systems. And so again, it could be IBM, it could be fucking MasterCard, it could be Visa, it could be Microsoft. You don't know. You don't care, because you're not taught to expect that that's a position you could be filling. See, I believe that narrowing of focus, it's going to have the intended effect on the market. The central points of failure are going to develop, and then we're going to have the GRBufu. And I'm not going to explain that here. Look it up on Twitter, #GRBufu. Anyway, I got this article here. It's on ambcrypto.com. Bitcoin, absence of central bank protecting value of crypto makes it unsuitable to be money, says ECB. Pfft, surprise, bankers say that. You need a fucking central bank. Anyway, continuing on. This is by Priya, and going by the picture and the name, I'm going to say no penis. This is authored approximately 2 hours ago on May 29th, 2019. Continuing on, Bitcoin, BTC, the largest cryptocurrency by market cap, stepped into its 10th year this year. The coin that grabbed the attention of the entire world by reaching nearly $20,000 towards the end of 2017 has been either accepted or rejected by government bodies and financial institutions. Some regulatory bodies have started to go the extra mile to encourage technological growth and be more crypto-friendly, while others have been often brushed off any discussions pertaining to the digital currency. I need to check something out here. Okay, cool. Alright, continuing. The current cryptocurrency was again placed into the limelight when European Central Bank released a report titled Crypto Assets, Developments, and Perspectives. The bank stated on Twitter, quote, "Crypto assets like Bitcoin are increasingly popular, but are volatile and speculative, and they are not currencies. New technologies like blockchain enabled their emergence." No, asshole! The existence of Bitcoin created the fucking blockchain. No Bitcoin, no miners, no block reward, no blockchain. Pfft, duh! In the Euro Area Statistics blog post, the bank remarked that Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies are as, quote, relatively recent phenomenon. The blog also pointed out that the increasing popularity of digital assets over the past 10 years has, quote, resulted in a growing number of trading platforms and an expanding variety of new crypto assets. Yeah, you notice they're using their own little nomenclature for what they're referring to. I'm just going to call them cryptocurrencies because that's the nomenclature we use on my show. The report highlighted that cryptocurrencies were, quote, highly volatile and that their, quote, combined value is small relative to the value of euro banknotes in circulation or other asset classes. The blog stated, quote, as a comparison, total issuance of electronic money in the euro, excluding the euro system, reached more than 9 billion in May of 2018. In 2017, commercial banks accounted for approximately 70% of this electronic money issuance. Further, the bank affirmed that cryptocurrencies were not currencies, adding that they differ from money and electronic money. The blog added that these digital currencies did not have legal status or a distinct legal framework with no regulatory oversight. Yeah, they don't need it. They've existed 10 years without it. They obviously don't need it. Continuing. Quote, the absence of any specific institution, such as a central bank, like ourselves, protecting the value of crypto assets, meaning manipulating the market to continue a persistent value, makes them unsuitable for use as a form of money. Yeah, we have to be able to manipulate it in order for it to be money for you to use to buy shit. Moreover, the pronounced volatility of crypto assets, that's basically reflecting our manipulation of the markets, and their limited acceptance by merchants discourages their use as a store of value or a means of payment. Yeah, they're going up in value, and so we don't want to spend them. Javier Bitcoin, a Twitter user, stated, quote, ha 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 ha, your monopoly is coming to an end. How do you feel knowing that you're going to have to work? Creating money out of thin air will end soon. Elite is becoming part of the mass. God damn, I couldn't have put it better myself. Thank you, Javier Bitcoin. Paola Agazzone, author, another Twitter user, said, quote, blockchain technology exists because Bitcoin exists. It cannot be separated. Moreover, Bitcoin, especially BCH, is peer-to-peer electronic cash is a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. It's volatile, but who cares? On average, the value increases because it can't be printed out of thin air. God damn! Thank you, AMB Crypto. Thank you, Piria? My apologies, I don't know how to pronounce that. And thank you, Javier Bitcoin and Paola Agazzoni. Definitely reflecting the reality back to the statements of the bankers. You know, it's not surprising that a central bank would have that perspective. And you know, it's just like Javier pointed out, they are losing their monopoly. They actually lost their monopoly 10 years ago. But this is them basically begging and pleading with the market, saying, please don't abandon us. We won't abuse you too much. You know, I think that it's really funny because, again, the volatility that these people bitch about so much, it's because of what's going on their side of the exchange rate. It's not because Bitcoin is suddenly issuing less Bitcoin or, you know, fewer Bitcoin than it did before. The halvening isn't for, like, I want to say like a year and 4 months or something like that. Then there'll be another halvening. And yes, that will be one of the factors on the Bitcoin side of the exchange rate that's affecting the relative price in US dollars. But for the most part, that volatility that we're seeing is things like quantitative easing and other means of injecting liquidity into the market on the side of the US dollar, on the exchange rate between the US dollar and Bitcoin. Because again, the issuance of Bitcoin is programmatic, it's deterministic. It happens on an average of 9 minutes and change. And so that's something you can actually calculate for. You have no idea when the Federal Reserve is going to have a wild hair in their ass and say, you know what, we need to put $3 trillion out on the market right now. You don't know when that happens. You know when they announce it, but that's usually like a month after it already happened. And they've already taken advantage of the market manipulation because they've got their own fucking trading desk. You know, you want to bitch about manipulation, you know, even in the legacy markets, you got to be narrowing your focus down to the Federal Reserve and their fucking trading desk. Because again, the thing this guy is bitching about, this central banker bitching, where is it? You know, I kind of annotated it as I read it, was saying, let's see, the absence of any specific institutions such as a central bank. This guy is a central banker. He works at the ECB, the European Central Bank. So, of course, according to him, every financial model has to have a little central banker at the top mapping out the direction of the monetary flow going downward. Unfortunately for him, the reality we live in no longer requires central bankers to do that shit. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music, because I feel the need. And let's see. This one goes out to the ECB and their central bankers. Exodus, Fabulous Disaster, here on Coin Metal. And that was Fear Factory with Power Shifter. Yeah, there's most certainly some power shifting going on out there. And I think it's one of those things that in the longer term we're just going to find out that there were a lot of people talking while there was a lot of people acting, and the talk doesn't actually match the act, and the difference between what they say and what actually transpires will be vast. And I think that could be said pretty much all the way around. You know, even with my own predictions. You know, I don't claim to be an expert in cryptocurrencies. I've just been around a lot longer than other people. You know, and that being said, I've had an opportunity to see how things develop. And from what I've been able to witness, it seems to me that there's not really as much force on the side of those instructing and talking about how we should participate in this space. There really isn't the tools of force to enforce their will on you. And this is both by design and by incident. That there are going to be certain points where they're able to quell activity. But whether or not they're actually incentivized to do so by their leaders is a whole nother story. This regulatory ambiguity, it allows the people that do write up the regulations themselves to basically front run the rest of the market, where they're doing their illegal activity today, so that they can write up their new regulations and get away with the criminal activity while prosecuting you for the criminal activity based on the regulations that they just drew up after they made their millions of dollars. But again, there aren't the same types of holds. It's like if I found somebody out there that wanted to transact with me using Bitcoin as money, there isn't anything anybody can do to stop that. It's just going to fucking happen. And if I can't do it in Bitcoin, I'll do it in Ripple. I'll do it in Litecoin. I'll do it in Monero. I'll do it in Verge. I'll do it in one of the 2,000 cryptocurrencies out there, because I'm sure at least one of them will allow me to do it. And once I find it, I'm going to make a habit of doing it that way until I can no longer do it that way, and then I'll find another way to do it. And there are enough people like me out there to continue this game in perpetuity. And I believe in the longer term, because there are way more of us than there are of them, we're going to win. That eventually they will be coming to us saying, hey, yo, we got to run this political campaign, and political campaigns cost money, so could you give us some money so we can run this political campaign? And we're going to be like, well, I don't know. Are you going to make any laws that make it more difficult for me to transact in cryptocurrencies or participate within the cryptocurrency space? And when they say, well, we've been talking to the banks and we might actually do that, we just say, well, then I'm not going to fund you, because fuck you. I don't want you to take this away from me. And when you're making noises out on the campaign trail, like that's what you're going to do. Oh yeah, we're going to cramp down on this cryptocurrency thing. No, I'm not going to vote for you. I'm going to say, fuck you. You're trying to cut my throat here, dude. I've never voted for anybody who's personally tried to cut my throat, and I'm not going to start now. And it's because we have the power to do that it is going to radically transform the balance of power out there between the state and money. I believe in the future there will be no state money. That they will have enough confidence in our money to be conducting state affairs in our money. And that will be a reflection of their confidence in their people. And they will not stand in the way of people wanting to create more mining setups. And they will not be there trying to limit your participation through regulations. No. They're going to have the previous 10 years to look at, which they do right now, and see how it's grown, and see how the actual criminal activity happening on our networks is minuscule by comparison to legacy markets, and yet we're still able to do legitimate commerce, otherwise legitimate commerce, not concerning the legality of the articles in exchange, but the commerce itself would be legitimate in that they send us the product, we send them the money, or we send them the money, they send us the product. That part of quote-unquote legitimate commerce actually takes place. No fraud, no deception, no bait and switch, that kind of thing. Product is sold for money. That to me, that's legitimate commerce, and I believe that view will be the pervading view of the market in the not so distant future. And that kind of scares me to some extent. But you know what? All change has a little bit of fear involved. Uncertainty is like that. But as with other things we're uncertain about, that we've manage to get around our own issues with it, I think the same will be said of cryptocurrencies, and people expected to be responsible enough to handle their money will do so responsibly. I expect you to drive responsibly on the road, so here I'm going to issue you a driver's license. Now, I don't believe that there's any licensure necessary, because there hasn't been a need for any kind of license yet. But we are expecting that if you are going to be holding on to your own funds via a wallet or some service or whatever, that you're responsible for them. And if you manage to get wrecked because you trust the wrong people or go with the wrong service, I'm sorry, there really isn't a whole lot of recourse for you. Just like in life, if you manage to navigate your car going the wrong way down a one-way street, you're going to get wrecked. These things happen. But there are plenty of ways that you could be evaluating the market participants and determining exactly which ones that you want to deal with. And that's much clearer now, while we don't have any regulators between us and our potential business partners for us to do that. Why the hell would we want to change it? Anyway, it is with that I'd like to go ahead and close out this episode. Thank you very, very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. I will be back again on Friday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. Thank you again for listening. And as far as our last dance is going to be, I'm going to go with a little bit of Helmet here. Expect the World. Last dance here on Coin Metal. Thank you again, and y'all have an excellent evening.